9 o'clock. I'd like to call the Harnett County Board of Commissioners work session for Tuesday, May the 26th, 2020 into session. I would like to ask those who are calling in to make sure you have your phones on mute so we don't get feedback in the meeting room. If you would join me in a pledge allegiance to the flag and invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you pray with me? Father, we thank you for the day you provided. Lord, we thank you that we can come to your county, Harnett County, and discuss the business, Father, that you would have us to discuss. Give us receptive minds and hearts and a willing spirit, Father, to listen patiently and carefully to the things that will be said today. And when we make our decisions, may it be found for your glory and your glory only. Of course, in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Our first order of business is Board of Education budget request. Irwin Fleming is calling in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for letting me join you here this morning on this typical way that we have been communicating now via phone or electronic means. I'll briefly go over the Board of Education's local appropriation request, and then if you have any questions, happy to answer those. I'm not sure, Paula, did you give them the whole packet? It starts with the letter to you and all that.
Yes, they have everything, Aaron.
Okay, good. I'm going through the packet here where I've got just a cover letter to Ms. Stewart, and then the cover, the Board of Education members, links to where all the financial reports are, and then the budget message. And just to highlight a couple things on the budget message is everyone really knows where we're at right now with the coronavirus pandemic and the challenges that we have faced. We did receive some state relief money, and we anticipate some federal money from the CARES Act to help carry us through with some of the added costs that we've had. Some of the highlights this year, of course, is kicking off the construction of Irwin Elementary School and planning the construction of Northwest Harnett Elementary. Also, we've been notified, one of the things we really pride ourselves on is being available to our military-connected students and families, and this year the state of North Carolina has launched the Purple Star Award. This is a rigorous application. Schools from all across the state, not just in military impacted areas, but all across the state apply. Really focuses on how well we treat military impacted students and families, how we prepare for them, how we work with them once they're here, staff development that we, professional development that we provide to our staff on the unique challenges of military impacted students. And again, several schools across the state did earn that award. In Harnett County, 100% of our schools earned the Purple Star Award, and we are the only school district in North Carolina to have 100% approval of the applications for our schools. And because of that, we were recognized as a Purple Star district by the state superintendent, and we are the only ones to do that, and we're very proud of that. So that's just a little bit on the budget message. Also, I mentioned in there about the school and middle school, primarily the middle school at this point, and the need to construct facilities to alleviate that. So I'll move into the budget request. It's a spreadsheet you should have in front of you. It starts off with a continuation budget of $24.7 million that we are currently receiving of local funding. In the last year or so, that has gone up significantly because of your support of school resource officers. That's a significant amount of money that has been added to the continuing funds into Harnett County Schools. For our current expense expansion, we have 4 items there. The first one is to cover the increase that goes on to charter schools. As we know, school choice has been increasing in Harnett County, just like any county. That is the case. And so when students go from Harnett to a school choice option or goes to a charter school, that funding does follow the student. We have to pay that out of local appropriations. And what was happening previously is when a student would go from Harnett County to a charter school, our funding would be cut on the county side because we were paying the best one of 2. Then we would have to, so we would get cut the first time there, then we get cut the second time when they left, and so we needed a way to fill in that loss there. And so last year you were able to do that, and that was around $600,000 if I recall, and this year it's a little less, about $435,000. The technology device refresh, actually we've done pretty well with this. We do need a little help to once again get our devices to a 1-to-1 student ratio. It's a major initiative for us, especially we've seen that now with this pandemic where students are at home, may not have devices, and we want to be able to provide them with a device. In education, a laptop lasts about 4 years. As we always say, as soon as you buy the laptop, it's out of date, but we're able to get about 4 years out of a laptop, and then we will need to refresh them. Again, we're asking for an increase to the supplement to get us to that goal of 10% so that we're at least where our neighbors are. We are right now last in the region when it comes to, or last within the counties that are joining us with teacher supplement. We would like to get that 10%. That at least gets us somewhat back into the game. Right now we're neighboring, the 8.5%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Also, to give our classified staff an increase to get them to market rate. As you know, in the past, we have a few years ago now, we completed a salary study, and we see that we have several staff members we need to work, classified staff members we need to work to get to market rate. And also there's additional funding in there for the associated benefits. There have been to the insurance, to the hospital insurance, increases to the retirement contribution as well. Finally, on there, the increase to exceptional children's program expenses. It's disappointing that we put that in there because that should be an expense that's covered 100% by the state of North Carolina. If you're not aware, all school districts are capped at what the state will give you for EC students, for special needs students. But by federal law, we still have to serve those students no matter the number we have. So even though the state caps us at 1%, we can't stop identifying special needs students. That would be illegal. And so right now our EC program is running behind by about $200,000. And that is simply because we have more special needs students in Harnett County than what the state will fund. Some would call that an unfunded mandate, which it is. We will move into, so when you add up our request in current expense, that comes out right at $4 million. And of course, current expense funds cannot be used for capital outlay. It's important to our capital expenses. Again, that's statutory. So our current expense request is right at $4 million. I'll move into capital outlay. Capital outlay, again, is broken down, or statutorily is broken down into 3 categories: facilities, equipment, and vehicles. For facilities, which is our biggest piece of the pie by far, and then I have further broken them down as I presented them to our school board like I did last year. I further broke those down into 3 different subcategories, and the first one being school safety. One is to finish our auto door lock upgrades. That's just over $250,000, about $251,000. And that covers the door locks that were not covered by a state grant we received. We did receive a state grant, about $450,000, I believe was the amount, $460,000. Some of our PTOs in the county, when they realized we only had so much to spend, they actually chipped in. And so we were able to cover a lot more than what we initially would have with just the public money. We were able to add some private dollars in there, and we are greatly appreciative of them. But it's about $251,000 to finish up all of our auto door lock upgrades. Second, security camera. We want to upgrade all of our analog cameras to an IP-based digital camera that's almost 4K. You'd be amazed at looking at the cameras, how clear they are. I've never seen school cameras clearer than what we have in many of our schools now. Again, with the state security grant, we were able to use a lot of that on it. We weren't able to completely finish the job with the state grant because it's a rather pricey initiative. But the camera upgrades, roughly $616,000 to finish those out. Again, these are digital cameras. They can be stored, they can be accessed, stored on the cloud is what I want to say, but really they can be accessed from anywhere, which our older cameras cannot be. And then the third item was a request, I believe, by some leadership in the Sheriff's Office working with our risk management department. Or actually, I believe this was by a consultant recommended this, and I believe we have some of the Sheriff's leadership that work with us on our school safety team for our school safety committee for this with our risk management director. And so those are the school bus radios. Right now we're using cell phones, but the request would be to replace those with school bus radios that work on the Viper network. Apparently I never realized we could do that. And other school districts, not just in North Carolina, but other states as well, have started using their law enforcement networks for radio frequencies. And what that allows is if a situation happens on a bus, law enforcement is able to radio into that bus, and law enforcement can talk back and forth, of course, using our radios as well. We thought there was a grant available for this, but the Viper Network grant, we believe, are only for law enforcement. The second subcategory is new and renovated school facilities. I will come back to that because this sheet continues with Tier 1 projects. We are asking for all of our Tier 1 items. That was our request of the school board. In addition to that, we're asking for the early college renovation at Ben Haven, as well as a new school transportation facility. I know we've talked about the transportation facility before, about possibly doing that as a partnership there, where the bus garage could also manage any vehicles the county may have. The Ben Haven and school transportation facility, they're separated out because they're not a part of the Tier 1 project, but I will discuss Tier 1 once we get into the facilities request in just a moment. And that is, of course, the largest part of the capital outlay request. The third subcategory, facility maintenance. This is a pretty simple to explain. As you know, our Lillington Star complex, the LEC, where I'm at right now, is in significant need of renovation overall, but the windows are literally rotting away. And we do need some window replacements, some HVAC replacements. We still have the HVAC systems in the gym, and we actually have still have a little bit of need of some drop ceilings in the 2-star buildings. $775,000 is our request there. Below that, I believe we had this in last year's request. That is an arbitrary number, that $1.5 million. That's just a number we chose. That could be more or less. But that is really just to assist with the 5-year replacement plan. I know when I got here, we updated the 5-year plan and realized that 5-year plan was 5 years back and then 5 years forward. So it's probably a 10 or 15-year plan. But so many items get up to that 5-year cycle and we don't do anything about it because the funding's not available. And then something that should have expired a few years ago, we're able to hold on another year or two, and then it dies, and then we don't have any way to replace it. And I'm worried that that's happening in some of our HVAC systems. It certainly happened with roof and parking lot replacement as well, so asphalt replacement. So those are the three subcategories under facilities. Moving on to equipment. Again, pretty simple here. Some walk-behind auto floor scrubbers for our schools, some new mowers, and a backup generator in our technology department. We do not have we're way behind on this one, but our technology department does not have a backup generator. And it's actually required with all of our cybersecurity and all too. But Category 3, vehicles. As we do every year, we're always buying buses. You'll see that on there. Our technology van needs replacing. If you see these old gold vans running around from the 80s, that's what that replaces. It's our technician vans that go from school to school. And then utility trucks, there's several, and I can't remember, I want to say 6 or 7 utility vehicles for our auxiliary services department that need replacing. And we replace those about every, I think, 10 years or so. So when you add up all of our capital requests, you're looking at around 180.6 million, 180.7 million. And here's the thing, I haven't even discussed, 80% of it yet. That was a very quick overview of the budget request at large, and then I'll go over the school facility needs list. This is something our board does every 2 years, roughly, and that should follow right after your budget request. You should see a 2020-2021 school facility needs list. I started that off, and all these are estimates. It doesn't include land or anything like that. The first item on there, our current projects, of course, we've got Irwin Elementary School. This was approved before bids. It was $27.5 million. We now know with inflation and the current labor market and several issues that general contractors are having with, or subcontractors are having with sourcing equipment. That's where the cost for Irwin has really jumped. We know that's closer to $29 million now.
Who did you estimate?
Anyone other than the economy, but they are very nervous about sourcing supplies, materials, and equipment. That is their number one concern, is that much of it comes from Asia, comes from China, and very concerned about that. Northwest Harnett Elementary School, our estimate there now is $38 million. Don't know that that is fully the true number now because we've seen the issues we've had with Irwin, but we believe it's as close as we can get at this point before we bid that school out.
Aaron,
so Tier 1, moving on. Yes.
Who did you estimate on Irwin School? How do you miss it $6 million?
Yeah, I had the same question, and according to the general or the construction manager at risk,
he's not doing his job.
They believe there's significant inflation involved in that. They believe that the labor market shortage is a significant portion on that, of just finding quality skilled labor within the major trades, masonry, electrical, HVAC, primarily plumbing. And then the third one is the sourcing of supplies and materials to build the school. A significant portion of that comes from outside our country, unfortunately again. And there is a major concern of being able to get those materials here. And steel prices, too, would be another one as well.
Steel prices are incredibly down. Believe me, my company sells steel. I don't understand a $6 million miss. 20 million people out of jobs right now. They're telling you they can't find help.
Well, the unfortunate thing is, and this is a whole other discussion that I'd love to participate in, is the skills gap we face today. Yes, you're right. There are a lot of jobs open. Unfortunately, no one is skilled to go into them.
Your risk management guy or girl, whoever he or she is not very good. $6 million is a big miss, Aaron.
Yeah, that's a question for our construction manager at risk and probably our architect as well.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
Dr. Fleming, while you're on that subject, next Monday morning, June the 1st, we've got a commissioners meeting, obviously, but we have not seen the documents that from the Board of Education prior to the month of June is when we go to the bond market to borrow monies on something that we don't have documents on. So
yeah, we've got a board meeting Monday night, and we will be approving the CM at risk contract.
So, okay, when you get that contract approved, how soon will the Board of Commissioners be able to get the contract so we'll be prepared to?
Yeah, as soon as it's approved Monday night, I have no reason to think that you would, once we get signatures the next day, I would think by the next evening you would have them.
So I would assume then the Board of Commissioners need to delay our vote until after we get your approved vote.
And that would be correct, yes.
Our finance officer, Kimberly Honeycutt, wants to make a comment.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, you would need to approve a bond resolution for an amount not to exceed. That has to be approved at your June 1st meeting to meet the June 30th bond sale that we're on schedule for. If we don't meet that, I don't know when we'll be able to go to the bond market.
Did you hear that, Dr. Fleming?
I did not. I heard about a bond resolution, but I didn't hear it.
Okay, our Board of Commissioners will have to approve a bond resolution and with authorizing amount of bonds to be sold on June the 1st for us to make the June 30th bond sale. We cannot approve it later than that. So they will have to have a dollar amount.
And the GMP will be in the contract.
It's not just a matter of the GMP. We've not seen any documents telling us what we're about to go finance.
Well, my understanding, I don't know, well, obviously Brooks is not on. I will check. I know all that's going to be in the contract document.
They can't meet Monday and us approve the money. They can't meet Monday and us approve the money.
This is Paula Stewart. I did speak with our bond counsel, and they said there's not a problem with our board approving it that morning and then the school board approving that night to meet the schedule. If something changes, we don't have to issue the bonds. So she said we can do the resolution, go ahead and do everything, but then if you're not comfortable with the project, then you just choose not to issue the bonds.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I'm sorry.
Paula, do you want the total dollar finance for Irwin? Do you want that in a separate document than the CMAR contract?
This is Kimberly, Dr. Fleming. Actually, the board will actually need all the cost that's associated with this issuance. So they will need all the prices and all your documents.
So all the costs. You want the cost breakdown
Yes,
of the
sir.
total amount.
Yes, sir. They will need the construction. You will have to have it broken out, your furniture, fixtures, all of the different components of this school that you're asking that bond resolution to cover.
Okay, we can get that.
All right, thank you.
And Dr. Fleming, this is Paula again. Is there a way we could get that information? I know it won't be approved by you till that evening. Is there a way we could get it sooner, or?
Yeah, I'll shoot an email now to our attorney and to SFL&A, the architect, and have them shoot that over to us.
And that way we know it's preliminary and it is not approved, but it would give our board some insight rather than
Yeah.
voting on something they haven't seen.
I can do that.
Okay,
I can give you what I got here on my desk, but I've got notes written all over it, so it's probably not the fanciest thing to look at. So I'll see if they can get it in a little cleaner document.
okay, go ahead and continue.
All right, I believe we are going to Tier 1. So for Tier 1 project request, we've got 6 items on there. One would be Johnsonville Elementary School. I know we've already talked about that. That project's $11,300,000. That would construct a new gym, or renovate the cafeteria, construct a new gym and kitchen, and add a classroom addition. We knew there was $5.1 million available, so we just went to the architect and said, hey, how much of that would be 5.1? We drilled that down, and I know we're on our way to making that happen. To finish that project out would be the classroom addition on that. South Harnett Elementary School cafeteria renovation, very similar to Johnsonville, is getting that kitchen gutted out and redoing the kitchen, and then really just cleaning up the cafeteria, new roof and all. $380,000. For a South Harnett or a south of Lillington, however you want to word that, middle school would be 1,100 seats, not including land, around $50 million now. Again, a South Harnett, Lillington, or a Highland High School, which is on land that's already procured, that's a $90 million ask now for a high school. I never thought you'd ever see a $90 million high school except in Wake County, but that's the going rate for a high school now. I believe that's for 1,000 seats. Highland Elementary School addition, that would add 300 seats with a cafeteria expansion. The same for Overhills. As you know, those two schools are extremely overcrowded. About $7.5 million each for those. So that is Tier 1, $166.6 million just in a Tier 1 request. And Tier 1, just so everyone knows, is sort of that immediate time frame, 1 year time frame. Tier 2, 2 years to 4 years. We know we actually had this in Tier 1 and moved to Tier 2 in our discussions with the board, but that is to renovate the gym and either renovate or tear down and rebuild the cafeteria at Lafayette. Once the Lafayette school moves to Northwest Harnett, we still know there is a need to use that campus, and that year off or 2 years off would give us an opportunity to repurpose that school, renovate some of the older buildings, which there's only a couple left on that campus, and then we can do some type of a school choice concept, year-round, classical, whatever it may be, special program we want to do at Lafayette. And then we added North Harnett and Wayne Avenue renovations in there. We don't know on cost or exactly what's needed, but we would want to do a thorough look through because that's sort of that next stage of building that needs some significant work, age of building, just like with Johnsonville and South Harnett. Bowie's Creek would be a part of that, but in the Tier 3, you'll see in just a bit here, I'll go ahead and move into Tier 3, kind of the 5 years to 9 years, maybe 10 years. Bowie's Creek Elementary School replacement is in there at $28 million. We know at that time frame it'll probably be more than $28 million. Western Harnett area elementary school and a North Harnett area elementary school at that point will probably be needed. You get this far out, it's a little harder to see down the road, but we know that that's probably not an unreasonable request because of the growth in those two parts of the county as they're expected to continue. And then either significant renovations or a replacement of Star Academy. I'm very concerned with the two buildings here in Lillington, the two older elementary high school buildings in Lillington, just because of the age of them. As they say, the shell, the bones are good, but there are significant renovations that are needed. Tier 4 projects at 10 to 15 years. Like I said, as you get further down the road, it's a little harder to see exactly what your needs will be. But We know at that point, after those elementary schools come middle school, so a North Harnett Elementary, or excuse me, a Western Harnett area middle school and a Northwest Harnett area middle school. We have purchased land for that middle school. The estimation, that's kind of today's numbers there, 50 million. 10 years from now, who knows? And then at that point, it'll be time to look at renovations to Harnett Central, Western Harnett, and Triton High School. They'll be 50-plus years old at that point. We're approaching 50 years. And then we added in there other school renovations because at that point, our elementary schools and all will probably need some work. But again, far enough down the road, you really don't know exactly what you will need. Tier 5 are not time projects. It's just kind of as opportunity comes up, you're able to do some things. That's where the Ben Haven and the transportation facility are. But also we know we'll need a new custodial and storage facility as we've had conversations of possibly letting some of that land go or where everything sits now in downtown Lillington. And then we know at some point there will be some renovations needed at Gentry as we change that into an EDC, an Educator Development Center, something several counties have. We're not fortunate enough to have that yet, but when Irwin opens, we will, because we'll have a facility. And that is really a professional development center where our teachers can come. We'll have model classrooms. We'll be able to use the multi-purpose room and a media center there for some larger meetings. And also, we are more than happy if the county or community college or someone else needs a wide open space. We may be able to allow them to use that in the evenings or certain times, maybe weekends as well. So right now, because of the amount we're putting into Irwin, we feel like Gentry's okay for professional development now, but I know over time we'll need to do some things there, but it's not high priority, and so that's why it's Tier 5. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, happy to answer any other questions you may have. That's a quick overview of our budget request and our school facility needs.
Okay, Dr. Fleming, it's Paula Stewart again. I just wanted to say that to let the board know we're going to include the Harnett County Schools in our capital process this fall. So instead of these things coming to you, they'll still come in this format, but they'll also be part of our process. So that way we'll be getting cost estimates and up-to-date information in the fall for us to vote on for their capital plan for the next budget year, for fiscal year 2022.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners got any questions or observations for Superintendent Fleming? If you would, if I forgot to mention earlier, make sure we've been reminded no one can see us, so state your name when you make a comment or ask a question. Commissioner Miller.
Aaron, it's Joe again.
Yeah.
That was awful nice of you. If we fund and you build a building, you let us use it. We appreciate that. At night when nobody else is using it.
I'm a giving person.
I can tell, sir. Yes, sir. You evidently have been studying with Campbell University.
That's right.
What I would like to know is how much money do you want, all this wonderful information we've got up here on the board, how much money do you want in the 2020-2021 budget?
Well, if you look at the totals, let me bring that back up.
How much money do you need for 2021 budget?
For, get back to the spreadsheet. For current expense, it's $4,001,772, and capital outlay is you'll have to sharpen your pencil on this one, but $180,683,854.
Okay. Now to rephrase my question, how much money do you need? Do you have to have? And 180 million will not do.
Well, that is what the Board of Education has approved for the budget request, and we know that that's a difficult ask. So that's really where a lot of joint work probably between the county manager and I, and even, in the Board of Commissioners and the school board, can help answer that. But I don't want to speak for the board in, priority-wise, the way this board was approved and their comments in the Board of Education meeting was that this is our annual request, or our request for this year. Everything on there is exactly as stated and what we feel our needs are. And we know too, or I do anyway, that, with the current situation we're in, there may be some revenues may be lower and all. So I don't want anyone to think that I or the Board of Education are not aware of that.
Commissioner
I'm
Springer.
glad you, this is Commissioner McCoy. I'm glad you made that statement because I was beginning to wonder.
What's that again? I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Springle. On the $4 million of additional funds that this is your operating budget, how much of that money can be covered by expenses that you did not have because you did not operate the schools during this pandemic?
Well, there probably is some. Now, the issue is a large portion, now not salary increases and all, but like when you look at school bus transportation and some instructional dollars, those are state dollars, so you don't have the flexibility on them. As far as local dollars, where most of that goes into paying custodians, paying classified staff, child nutrition, possibly all that. That money, everyone was still employed. So where a lot of our local dollars are going to salaries, those individuals are still being employed. So they're really, even though we quote our building, even though our buildings were quote not operated, now I expect we'll see some savings in utilities. But that probably would be the main thing. So really, there's not a lot of flexibility there. Because of the fact that most of it is state dollars, that are in categories. So you don't have the flexibility of transferring or anything like that.
I know you
I would
can't.
hope we would see on the local side. I would hope we'd see some savings in utilities.
I know you can't transfer the money, but can it replace expenses?
Well, no, because state dollars are categorical, so you have to use them for a certain expense. So if, and I'll use an example with state teacher dollars, we really have no flexibility with that, but they're still being paid. So I think a lot of people believe because kids are not actually sitting in schools, we're saving a lot of money. We are saving some money, and like I said, in utilities, but we've still had to use other dollars, yes, to purchase some technology. We've had to use some other dollars when allowable to purchase supplies and all. And we know, too, that the relief money will help pay for some expenses.
So
on the local side, we have not really been able to save a whole lot because it's so wrapped up into salaries.
So how much relief money do you estimate you're going to get?
We're not absolutely sure. Received, I believe, around $800,000 on with state relief dollars. We have not received federal CARES money as of yet. I don't believe. I can ask Ms. McGill, but I know as of last week we haven't received any federal money.
So how much money would that be?
I'm not sure. I need to check and see. I'm not sure that we've got a planning allotment on exactly what that'll be.
But wouldn't that money replace some of the current expense money that we having to spend?
It should, if it's related to the coronavirus pandemic, absolutely. And I believe we'll be able to use some of that for technology, too.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Because as those students are sitting, as those students are working at home, we know that one of the allowable expenses would be to get those mobile Wi-Fi hotspots and laptops and all to them. So that will help us there, definitely.
Any additional questions? Dr. Fleming, we appreciate your request, and we will carefully consider it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Next on our agenda is the nonprofit committee funding request. Lucia Turlington, if she's on.
I am. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Good morning, commissioners and county staff, and whoever else may be on the phone call, as we adjust to new ways of doing business. With that said, obviously it's been brought to my attention that you all, we originally put in a recommendation of $80,500, and commissioners submitted back to us to make an adjustment, preferably $60,000 or less in our recommendation that we initially gave. So that brings us to today. With that said, are we wanting to do a line by line, or are we just wanting to do a total amount that I would like to resubmit to the board? Which way would you all prefer this morning?
What's the pleasure of the board?
Total will be fine.
Total? The only comment I got was total. I'm sorry, Commissioner McCoy.
I'm looking at the report here. I want to know, when did we decide to pull the Boys and Girls Club completely off the list? Because I don't remember, recall us meeting on that.
And I'm very glad that you brought that up front.
Excuse me, I'm talking about the commissioners. When did we decide to do that?
We didn't. We talked about this, and the budget, what was put into the budget was $60,000.
No, what was put in the budget was not $60,000.
Into this budget,
Oh.
not into your budget as a nonprofit.
Wait a minute now. I think you misunderstood. That was not put into this budget. That was put into the budget after we submitted the budget.
I think you're wrong, but we'll
I'm
ask.
not wrong. I'm right.
I think Barbara, we talked about the $10,000 that was originally requested by the Boys and Girls Club, and found out that they had money that had not been spent.
But that may be true. But what I'm saying is, I'm sitting on this board, and I believe in doing things in a professional way. And that was not the right way to do it. You all took it off the budget before the committee or the commissioners discussed it.
Manager Stewart, I don't recall us taking anything off, so maybe you can explain.
Well, I can speak to this is Paula Stewart, I can speak to the, actually what was placed in the budget. My recommended budget was just a placeholder of the $60,000, which is what we did last year, which was part of our continuation budget. So for any expansion of this, it would be whatever this request came in and whatever y'all voted on, then we would adjust it up or down, depending on after the board had this discussion on the nonprofit funding committee. So I just put the $60,000 in as a placeholder, only because that's what we budgeted last year. And we didn't spend that much last year, we spent $56,000, but we did put a placeholder in there. But as far as the actual amounts, I didn't do anything with the detail, I just was working with a total amount.
This is Commissioner McCoy. The placeholder that you put on $60,000, what I am saying is that it was never discussed in a meeting with the commissioners. Never discussed. And it was never brought to the nonprofit committee. I'm not saying I disapprove of what you did, but we're supposed to make these decisions based on a vote from the whole board. And it was never brought to the board. So I'm going to stand up and say that it was wrong. What you did was wrong.
I don't understand this is Commissioner Chairman Penny, we've never voted, that's what we're having discussion right now. We've never voted on it as you're right, Commissioner McCoy, as a group of commissioners. We have not voted on it yet. That's what we're trying to do now. It's my understanding.
Your
Right.
nonprofit budget was tabled.
That's true.
Yes, ma'am.
But what I'm saying is this, that the $60,000 was not brought to the nonprofit committee. It was never brought to us. We discussed this with the attorney, asked question, was there a cap? And it was said to us, no.
There was, just never put in the meetings, and you know it.
Why you see that, Joe?
You know it was never put into
It was
the, we
never,
discussed that
never,
in the
it was never.
beginning.
I'll table this, because it was never. You have your opinion, and I have mine. I believe in doing things right. I'm not opposing to what was done here, but what I'm opposing to is the way it was done. And I'm not gonna sit on this board and not tell you how I feel. Because I have a vote, just like you all do.
This board's
And it
never
was wrong.
discussed it. You're fussing at the wrong people.
No, I'm fussing at the ones that made this decision and who they are. I don't know who they were.
I think, Barbara, I think what happened was when this was tabled, the question was asked, how much money was budgeted for the new 2021 budget? And the amount that was budgeted was $60,000. And so,
You're wrong.
yes, that's what's in the budget.
That is not, the budget was not made up then for $60,000 when we met.
I understand that. I'm saying that was so what was asked was, when it was tabled, the question was, what do we need to use as a guide? And the guide was $60,000, which is what
That
all.
may be true, but it was never voted on by the body. It was never voted on.
It wasn't.
I'm through with it. I'm through with it. But I'm gonna let you know, I don't like what was done here, and it wasn't right. And I don't care what you, Joe, nobody said, it wasn't right. That was your opinion is what the budget was supposed to be. We had an attorney sitting right in the meeting with us.
If you want to continue, Lucille, we'll gladly hear what you've got to say.
Okay, so just wanted to make sure I didn't do any type of interrupting. Okay, so with that said, obviously I'm stuck over the Boys and Girls Club, but I definitely feel that is a fantastic opportunity. And what I would like, if we feel that 60,000 is, I'm more trying to decipher at this moment, is the 60,000 a line item, or is the 60,000 hard in stone with the actual budget of the county? Does somebody mind clarifying that for me?
Lucia, hey, it's Paula Stewart again. All the 60,000 was a number that I put in the recommended budget under the county manager's recommendation. After the county manager's recommendation, the board discusses items like they're doing today, and then they come back to me with any suggested changes, not just on this, but on any budget item. So the recommended budget right now is just my recommendation, and then they come back and tell us if they want changes made up or down. So that is just a placeholder number in the budget at this time. And the budget will be voted on in June 15th. So we've got from now till June 15th to get the wishes of the board and make the changes to the recommended budget.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying, and that's the way I understood it.
So at this, and also I do want to just clarify that outside of the nonprofit committee, there is no additional funding going to the Boys and Girls Club in any other type of format. Is that correct? To the best of the county's knowledge?
Except for a building.
And that building that is where I guess they more or less get free lease on that building.
This is Brian Haney, Assistant County Manager. To answer that question, the Boys and Girls Club currently operates out of the Shawtown Community Development Center, which is at the former Shawtown School. And for this current year, there is a $1 rental charge the county's charging to Boys and Girls Club. However, after the first year, the club will be responsible for covering the cost of utilities associated with occupying that space. However, there's no additional lease payment for that property.
Okay, and Shannon, are you there?
She's not in the room.
She is or is not, I'm sorry.
She is not currently in the room.
Okay, was wanting to, trying to look at, last, real quick.
I'm online now with you.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Last year with the Boys and Girls Club, we did 10,000, correct?
Last year with the Boys and Girls Club, no, this is the first year that they have applied for funding.
Okay, so it's the first year they've applied for funding.
Yes.
Okay. So, and their request was 10,000. I'm just doing a double check on everything before I make any further proposals to the county. Yes.
They requested 15,000.
Yes. Okay, got you. Okay, I just got my sheet on that. Okay. So with that said, and taking into consideration all of the discussion that's been had at hand, I would like to come to the table of submitting 5,000 to the Boys and Girls Club, and my initial recommendation prior to the discussion with the county was going to be requesting 58,500. And with that said, I would actually like to make a formal recommendation to the county for nonprofit funding for 2020 in the amount of 63,500.
Why is her numbers different from the numbers we've got on this piece of paper?
What was in your package was the original request. The one on the board, that was the original one that was given to you all, because I didn't have a different.
Lucia Joe Miller.
Yes, sir. How are we doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Question, Partnership for Children, is that not a federally funded program?
Yes, it is.
Then why are we giving money to them? That was part of our original stuff that we would not fund federally funded programs.
Because it was, this is a program that is not funded by the federal government. What they're doing is, when they present this information to us, is that they're supplying the health department and social services with bedding, diapers, other things that are not covered under the food stamp program, and that's what they're doing. It has nothing to do with. This is an additional program that's supporting the health department and the social services department. That's what they're doing. They're providing car seats, beds, other stuff for babies. That's what their request was, and that's what they described what they were asking for.
And we also had the NC Economic Assistance Center, they requested for their application to be withdrawn, and also the Special Olympic event was canceled in May, so we will not be funding them this year. But, obviously Special Olympics is normally a large fund for us, so kind of taking the Special Olympics, replacing it with the Boys and Girls Club, and withdrawing with the economic assistance is where I'm coming up with the 63,500.
Lucia Howard Penny, who is or what is South Wake Conservationist?
South Wake Conservationist is before I speak, I just want to get my notes in front of me to make sure that I am speaking correctly with that. They more or less take wildlife and process it accordingly and donate the deer mainly for meat, mainly throughout Harnett County during the wildlife season, hunting season.
They
So
furnished,
the deer don't go to waste in the food.
they furnished 18,000 meals last year.
Okay. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, very, honestly, very unique, program, but great that none of that
I
goes
don't
to
know
waste.
why they're called South Wake, because they're right down here off Prison Camp Road.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any more questions for Lucia? Yes, I understand.
Commissioner,
Yes.
this is Commissioner McCoy. I want to say that, you know, I don't have a problem with the request, and I don't have a problem with the funding. I just had a problem with the way it was done. It wasn't done right, so that's all I gotta say. I don't have a problem with whatever you give or whatever.
All right, thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Anyone else have any questions for Lucia? Thank you for your time and your presentation, and we will carefully consider it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next on our agenda is solid waste budget. Chad Bean.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I think the last time I had a chance to address you was my very first day on the job back in August. And I spoke about being excited about taking the wheel as a solid waste director. And stand before you today probably even more excited because after kind of evaluating staff and our programs, I think we're very capable hands. We got some very qualified, hard-working members, and I'd like to thank them publicly today. I also like to thank administration for being so supportive as I've taken on the new role of solid waste director here in Harnett County. So to kind of give you a brief overview of what we're talking about today, I want to kind of go over solid waste a little bit and then try to address any questions that you may have. I don't have any formal presentation. I think just conversation and dialogue is the best route to go on this. So, you know, our first priority for solid waste here in Harnett County. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask someone to mute their telephone because we're getting feedback in the commissioner room. So if you've got your phone, it's not muted, please mute it. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, sir. Our number one priority is customer service for the citizens of Harnett County, and also waste disposal in the most environmentally friendly manner. We have 7 convenience sites throughout the county. We're starting to make some improvements at some of those. I hope maybe you've got a chance to go out and see. Mamers, we've established a better access drive for our citizens to come in, better egress to come in and dispose of their waste. We've also installed some compactors there, which will enhance and save us quite a bit of money as far as hauling costs there. We've just done that in the last month or so. Another thing that we're doing is looking to relocate the convenience site at the Irwin Landfill. If you've ever been out there to dispose of waste, if the average citizen that has 2 or 3 bags of garbage has to wait in line at the landfill, with contractors and all that, it's not convenient at all. So what we're trying to do is separate or segregate that convenience site just outside the gate area there, so that our citizens can come in and dispose of waste, in a very orderly fashion, and just be easier and more convenient for our citizens. Landfills, we've got 2 landfills. We've got done Irwin. Back in August, we closed up one sale or disposal area for our construction demolition area, and we were able to open another area and expand that construction demolition landfill there on site. And so that's filling up nicely, and it's working nicely. Also at Anderson Creek, we've recently obtained a permit to construct that Anderson Creek construction demolition landfill and expand that as well. So we're moving forward. We're excited about the direction we're going in. Some other things that we're trying to address, we've heard from citizens, we've heard from you, the board. There's concerns about litter, roadside litter. There's concerns about illegal dumping. We've got a very active Keep Harnett Beautiful committee, and some of that funding this year is going to be directed toward that, as far as increasing our programs there, education outreach programs, and also just moving forward with any events that we may have that we could add hazardous waste disposal, cleanup events, and those type things as well. So thanks to that committee for the hard work that they are doing. And also, illegal dumping, I mentioned that briefly. Sheriff's office is very involved with that. We have an environmental officer just for that, actually, that can write citations and those type things. So Sheriff Coates and his team is doing a fine job with us on that and working closely with us on that. So I say all that to say this. This year's budget, we're focusing on building our capital. We're enterprise fund, so we're focusing on building our capital just because you know, at a landfill, if you have to replace a piece of equipment, you're not looking at a $30,000, $50,000 piece of equipment. You're looking at, you know, $400,000 and that type thing. So we're trying to be proactive and build that capital fund up a little bit so that we can make a purchase such as that and it not really affect us in a strong manner. So that's a brief overview, and I know you've had the audited financial statements as well. And I will be glad to try my best to answer any questions that you may have. I kind of jokingly say I could talk trash all day, and I could, but I'll be brief this morning. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to address those.
Chad, I got one. Commissioner Johnson, have you discussed with the sheriff the possibility of using prisoners to pick up the trash along the roads?
Yes, sir, I have. And we've had a good conversation about that, and we're going to try to move forward with that as soon as possible.
You got an estimate on when that may be available?
I can't, of course, with the situation that we're in now with this COVID-19 situation, it's kind of put everything on hold. But I'll be glad to try to, you know, spur that conversation and get back in there and talk to him a little bit more about that and try to get you a better time frame for that.
Also, on your convenience sites, when people pull up to those and the gates closed, everybody's gone home, they get to dump their trash. Is there a restriction on what they can put in there? Because I see furniture and refrigerators and toilets sitting beside the road.
There are certain guidelines, certain materials that we can and can't take, and of course we're regulated by the state on that. All of our sites, however, are manned so that they are educated and we can educate the citizens as they come in as to what they can and cannot throw away. But if the gate is closed and someone just decides, well, hey, I'm just going to leave my garbage here at the gate, they can be cited and they can be fined for that. So it's good questions. Good questions.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
This
sir.
is Commissioner McCoy.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have cameras?
We do have some cameras. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that makes it, you know,
Yeah.
better for you to figure out exactly who's dumping, who's leaving the stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you don't have something there, there's no way you can do anything about it, because now these people dumping trash on items all over the highways,
Right.
every highway in the county. I don't understand. That's one thing I can say. I agree with Commissioner Miller. The highways here in Harnett County, they're awful. People just jump out anything, and they don't care. But we need to, as citizens, keep our county highways clean like we keep our homes. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Also, Officer Andrew Tyler is the environmental officer, and he literally has gone through bags of garbage that have been dumped, you know, illegally on the side of the road to find out an address or, you know, some information to try to identify the individual that was responsible for that. So it's not very glamorous sometimes, but we're trying to move forward and address those issues. Thank you for your
We
comment.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next is relocation of fire district boundary lines, Rodney Daniel.
And before we do that, we do need to kind of wrap up the budget discussion. We can do that under county manager's report if you want to go ahead and get through the agenda first.
Okay. Gina, if you would scroll that up so I can see the bottom. Okay. Got you.
I'm just going to do the introduction. I'm going to let Rodney talk about more of the details. But for today, presented to you a resolution of the Board of Commissioners declaring its intent to relocate boundary lines between adjoining fire protection service districts. This is just an introduction for today. If you want to proceed with this process, we would publicize it to the public, make a packet of information available to the public, and then we'll have a public hearing, and then we'll, after that public hearing, decide whether to adopt a formal resolution to change the lines. Again, Rodney will talk about more of the details of the actual changes, but just under statute 153A-304.3, the board can, by resolution, relocate the boundary lines between adjoining fire protection service districts if the districts were established for substantially similar purposes. Back in 2011, the Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution which created all the current fire protection service districts, to which here, the ones that are being affected are West Area and Somerville, Bun Level. Again, under the statute, prior to adoption of the resolution, have to make available to the public report a map showing the current and proposed boundary lines, a statement that the boundary relocation meets the requirements of the statute, a plan providing service to the area affected by the relocation, and the effect the changes in the amount of taxable property will have on the ability of the district to provide services or to service any debt. As said, we'll have to call a public hearing. So before you today is that intent to adopt the boundary lines, and we're going to let Rodney talk about the actual changes themselves.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Several months back, there was Mr. Bobby Wellens has a parcel that spans from NC 217 to Horseshoe Bend Road. The parcel was in Somerville Bun Levels District. It was accessible off of Horseshoe Bend Road. It's approximately 30 acres. It was subdivided. They cut out about a 4-acre tract, and the driveway currently leads to Highway 217, which put them outside the 6 mile for Somerville Bun Level. So what we're proposing to do is change these boundary lines. The address is 6262 NC 217, so we can bring him into a lower public protection class. Anything out to 6 miles will be a Class 10 public protection class, which is going to drastically increase his insurance premiums. So by changing this district line, we pulled that one parcel in, the original large parcel. We're proposing to move it into West Area Fire District, as well as 2 small parcels on Horseshoe Bend Road. I've talked to all 4 property owners, as well as the fire chiefs from both departments, and everybody's in agreement. It's going to benefit everybody in that area. Currently, there's only one parcel, the 6262, that has it's about a 6,000 square foot home on it, I believe. That's the only one that's really affected. But just to eliminate confusion during response to the fire departments, we pulled all 3 of them, or all 4 of them, excuse me, just to clean it up and eliminate this in the future.
Anybody got any questions?
So this is Commissioner Springle, is there, so you do have an agreement with the servicing fire departments that you will provide service to these areas?
Yes, sir.
Is that something we have like an MOU with them to make that agreement, or?
We have a current contract with the West Area Fire Department to provide coverage up to and down part of Horseshoe Bend Road. This parcel was in Somerville because it touched both properties and it was within their 5 mile area. Currently, that all 4 parcels, if there's a structure fire, which there's 3 houses on the 4 parcels, but if there's a structure fire, we have automatic aid agreements with West Area and Somerville, so both departments would be responding on a structure fire. And if it's a woods fire, vehicle fire, single station response, then West Area would be primary in that area.
So we do have an agreement with those?
Yes, sir. It's already in place. It's been in place since 2011.
Because we did this one time before, back on the other side of Grove. We contracted with 5210 to cover some areas. I think there were 2 roads on the other side of Coates off of 27 that we could not cover, And they agreed to cover it, so it gave those people the same kind of break these people are gonna have.
Correct. Yeah, we're contracting over there with West Johnson Fire Department.
Yeah,
Two areas.
right.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have City of Dunn's request to purchase county property from Mayor William L. Moore and City Manager Steve Newshafer calling in. Are you in? Are you online with us?
A little early for them.
They're not on yet. You want to go ahead and skip down to Brian on the next?
Well, let me ask one more time. Is either Mayor L. Moore or Manager Steve Newshafer on the phone with us? Okay, if not, we'll move on down to the next till they get online. I guess it would be County Manager's report?
No, it'd be Brian Haney on the personnel ordinance.
Okay, that'll be fine.
No, I'm sorry. No, so we're not doing that. Okay. I saw the wrong agenda. Never mind.
Yeah, I thought you had a different agenda than we did.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry about that. We moved it. Whew, sorry about that. So under County Manager's report, we need to go over the regular meeting agenda for June 1st, which will be Monday. The only things that are highlighted in red would be the resolution we just spoke about, would be item 4E on consent agenda. Our Heart System is requesting approval of a grant for coronavirus relief, the CARES Act, in the amount of $349,369. That would be 4F if we make it through the internal review cycle. And then item 4G, we're proposing that the finance officer is requesting approval of a revised budget ordinance for the Irwin Elementary School project, because as Mr. Miller said earlier, it was 24 point something earlier, and so we need to revise our project ordinance to go up to the 27.5 amount.
And he had 29 today.
Oh, I know.
Oh, so, let's see, ask him where he can come up with that money.
We've asked for, I've confirmed that he's gonna send us what they have ahead of time, so we'll get those numbers and let y'all look at them.
Should that be a separate item, Paula?
If that's how you want it, we can make it a regular agenda item.
I would
for
suggest
discussion.
it be a regular item as opposed to being on the consent.
Okay, we'll move it.
So we can kind of discuss what it makes.
It'll be number 7, we'll move it to item 7.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Don't you agree? I mean, I think
Absolutely.
we need to be talking about it.
I agree.
We're not through discussing it yet.
Because it keeps fluctuating, going up, going up.
Well, we've not seen the actual numbers yet either, so hopefully we'll have a better indication.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about, and then I do have to turn it over to Brian for something, but Marie Watson from the Johnson Lee Harnett Community Action let us know that Johnson Lee Harnett will be receiving $953,379 to assist people with COVID-19 emergency type situations, people in crisis. And so we asked her what would our people be hopefully getting the funds for, and she said it would be things such as rent, utilities, food, just your basic. So just so y'all know, that'll be coming in. And she said you don't have to approve it, she just wanted you to be aware that those funds will be coming in into Harnett County.
That's great.
And then I'm going to turn over to Brian for a second to talk about the CARES Act funding that we have to provide. I know you've read about it, we've talked about it, potentially receiving the $2.4 million, and we have to have a plan submitted to the Office of State Budget and Management by June 1st. So I think Brian wanted to go over kind of where our expenses are falling out right now from all our departments.
Well, let me, this is Commissioner Springle, let me suggest something. On this, on the agenda, if we're going to move G, shouldn't it be before this resolution that we talk about on the obligation? Shouldn't we do it before we talk about the obligation?
We can make it number 6, and we can make the resolution number 7.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we actually put, since I'm talking about it today, Gina, we can move the Johnson Lee Harnett Community Action off of the agenda for Monday, since I'm telling them today. The Harnett County, you have to put it, okay. The Harnett County portion is $340,466, and that's under County Manager's report on June 1st. And I'll turn it over to Brian.
Good morning. I wanted to provide an update on what I talked about a couple of weeks ago related to the Coronavirus Relief Fund allocation for Harnett County. Just to recap, Harnett County will receive just over $2.46 million from the Coronavirus Relief Fund as part of the CARES Act. This funding must be used for expenses that are directly related to expenditures incurred to address the COVID pandemic, spent on purposes that were not accounted for in the county's most recently approved budget as of March 27th of this year, and expenditures have to have been incurred between March 1st and December 30th of this year. It cannot be used to replace lost revenue, and as Paula mentioned, a proposal must be sent to the Pandemic Recovery Office by June 1st. So what we've done, we have a kind of an internal group that's been meeting to talk about options and ideas and different expenses. We've asked all county departments to track their COVID-19 related expenses since March 1st, and also to project qualifying expenses through the end of the calendar year. Our primary goals have been enhancing the health department's efforts to test and trace for COVID-19, making sure first responders and other frontline employees have resources and the support they need, making adjustments to the county facilities and operations to limit the spread of COVID-19 and to prepare county offices for a reopening to the public that protects both employees and citizens, covering applicable costs for staff time related to specifically responding to COVID-19, and enhancing the county's ability to implement teleworking and virtual solutions. So far, the majority of expenses have been related to the health department, obviously in providing their services, providing PPE and other items for first responders, emergency services, and the sheriff's office, and then installing plexiglass, hand sanitizer, that sort of thing in our facilities. We've attempted to route expenses through specific departments for consistency. For instance, teleworking needs go through IT, facility needs, we've been trying to put them through facilities so that there's consistency there and in what the county's doing. Facilities and emergency services have also conducted walkthroughs through all county departments and have reviewed their COVID-19 operational plans. In addition to these expenses, we have been authorized, all counties have been authorized to allocate a portion of these funds to municipalities within their county. These funds for the municipalities are held to the same requirements that the county funds are held to, and the county is responsible for making sure that those requirements are adhered to. We have been engaged with the town managers and the city manager in Dunn and have asked them to provide their expenses to date as well as their anticipated expenses. We've also answered any questions they've had related to funding, but like every other county in the state, we've had our own questions related to what is an appropriate and reimbursable expense. So we've been referring those questions to the state. There's a pretty extensive frequently asked question document that we've been consulting as well. So at this point, and keep in mind this is still somewhat of a moving target, but what has been requested includes from county departments. Expenses to date is $166,000, just over that amount. Anticipated expenses are $1.85 million for the rest of the year. The majority of that, just over $1.3 million, is for the health department's efforts as the front line in COVID-19 response. Our request from the municipalities so far to date and anticipated is nearly $113,000. So when you total all that together, at this moment it's just under $2.13 million, a little over $300,000 less than the county's total allocation. But keep in mind, we're still processing departmental submissions and following up, and I will be doing that through the end of this week to get to a firm total. And this does not include all staff time that's been spent on COVID response that's reimbursable, or additional teleworking expenses. Obviously, you know, with some of the other priorities, teleworking is kind of, it's a priority, but it's on the lower end of those priorities. Also, it's difficult to anticipate projected costs for the rest of the year, particularly related to those testing needs and staff time required to respond to COVID-19. However, we are allowed to amend our proposal, and we will continue monitoring and adjusting as things change. We anticipate ultimately reaching and surpassing our allocation, but there are additional grant funds, as you heard about with the upcoming agenda requests, that have been allocated specifically for county departments, including the health department, emergency services, sheriff's office, HARTS, and the library. And we can also apply for reimbursement through FEMA for applicable expenses beyond this total, but the guidance from the state has been to use the CRF funding first. And then additionally, there is, I think I mentioned this last time, $150 million the state has set aside for counties to use for revenue replacement should the Congress come back and say that funding can be used for revenue replacement. So that's something, the association and the counties are all lobbying for flexibility in using those funds. And then there's currently a House bill out there that I don't think has got a lot of traction, but I think, there may be additional funding opportunities that come down. So any questions at this point?
This is Commissioner McCoy. You may have answered this, I don't know. Are there any funds in there for tracking, hiring employees for tracking?
Yes, ma'am. The health department, John Rouse has submitted his anticipated funding request, and it includes testing, tracking, a lot of testing that would be needed for your long-term care facilities. There are certain requirements they're adhering to there, but yes, the health department's budget is $1.3 million for the rest of the year, and that is where that is located.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Penny, what was the amount for the towns?
The total amount at this point for the towns, and again, this may be adjusted, was $112,792.99.
Okay.
And obviously, the municipalities, they don't have, your health department, your sheriff's office, your emergency services, so they're most of what they're submitting is for upfitting their facilities to reopen to the public.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions for Brian?
Brian, you said, this is Commissioner Johnson, you said $150 million for counties for replacement revenue.
Correct.
Is that approved?
That funding, the state has approved that funding for revenue replacement in the event Congress comes back and says you can use it for that purpose. Right now, the CARES Act does not allow for revenue replacement. And again, as to how that money would even be allocated, I don't believe that's been approved either. So I don't know how much Harnett County would get if that were to happen, but that is something that people are pushing hard to have happen.
No, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Dunn's on the line now, so if you want Coley to kick it off.
Okay,
Let's make sure.
This is Chairman Howard Penny. Is Mayor Elmore and Manager Steve Newshafer on the phone?
Good morning, Chairman. William Elmore here. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. Can you hear us okay?
I hear you just fine. Coley.
Good. I have in attendance with me today is Steve Newshafer, our City Manager, and Public Works Director is Heather Adams is with us. And I appreciate you taking time to put us on your workshop agenda. I'd like to thank each of the Board of Commissioners for taking a look at this for us. I'm sorry I hadn't had the opportunity to meet with you as a group face-to-face. I have met and talked with Chairman and Mark Johnson concerning this situation that we have at the Irwin location of our water plant. And today, before you, you have a proposal, a formal proposal from the City of Dunn to purchase some land that adjoins our current water plant. I would like to say that Dunn has been in the water business for 100 years, effective this year. We went in business in the water business on Cafeteria River at the Irwin location in 1920. So we've been around and doing water for many, many years. The current water plant that we have out there now is approximately 60 years old, and we're in need of upgrading our water plant. And in doing so, we need to acquire some additional land. The county bought some land from the city of Irwin, the town of Irwin, back in 2006, I think it was. And I think you all took over servicing the city of Irwin, but we're in need, and I think also that the county removed and tore down the existing water plant that Irwin had there. So for 14 years, the county has owned this piece of property and nothing has happened on it. And we're in need of expansion and would like to acquire that property from the county. We appreciate the partnership that the county and the city have done and been able to work with and on other projects over the years. But we're ready to move forward and purchase this. Now, we have had our engineers working on formulating a plan to put in a new plan, and our desire is to have a new plant in place within about 6 to 7 years. And as most of you know, the planning process typically can take up to about 2 years with planning and design, and then another year or two to build the plant. And we're in need with a 60-year-old plant that we're not in trouble now, but we're trying to make preparations so we don't get caught and get ourselves in a jam with no water supply. We are also a regional water distributor in our area, covering 4 counties, some of 4 different counties here on our side of the river. And so we have a real need and desire to keep our customers with water. I know that in the meeting that I was in recently with Mr. Steve Ward, he was very generous in his offer to buy the Dunn water plant from us. And we're not really, that's not our desire, is to sell our plant. Right now, our current water budget is $1.5 million. And should we sell to the county based upon the numbers that we have looked at a cost of $2.60 per 1,000 gallons, it would cost our city $3.8 million. So that's way out of the range of anything we could even entertain in doing. So we would like to move forward with the purchase of that property for the county. We feel like that the county doesn't really have a plan in place at this time, and having held that land for 14 years and not having anything on the capital improvement plan kind of leads me to think that there's not really a plan for it, and the county's just housing it, for inventory. There is, sitting on that land, I think we provided maps for you all. Sitting on that land is, you'll see the 2 round structures that are there. That's tanks that we have on our current Dunn water site. And the surrounding property, you will see a pond in the lower right-hand corner, and that pond represents a reservoir that's owned by the county, but it is not operable at this time. In other words, it's sitting there and it's holding water, but y'all don't have a way to distribute or pump water from there. The only thing the county is doing is pumping water from the river and keeping the pond filled. And we would like to purchase the land that reservoir is sitting on, and the land that is below that, where the Horseshoe Drive is, which was an old plant. That was the old wastewater plant down there. Those 2 pieces would be enough for us to expand our plant and continue to operate the current plant that we have going now. Having said that, we feel like that there are, and in our research, we feel like there are some liabilities that certainly we could remove from the county if we could work this out and y'all would sell it to us. There is on the lower end of that pond, there seems to be there's a breach in the fence on that end, and which is not a major deal for the county to fix, but there is some leakage of that pond is what we've determined. And that's going to have to be attended to either by the county, or if the city of Dunn acquires this property, we would accept full liability for that ourselves. And then there's the liability of keeping the property up as far as mowing and that sort of thing. And then you have to keep your line service from the intake on Cape Fear River up to the reservoir that you keep filled by pumping water out of the river. But all that liability would shift over to us immediately if the county were to sell us this property. And we're asking this to be sold to us for our growth, and so we can continue to look after our citizens and customers, as well as we feel like it's a good partnership with the county and the city as well, because what happens good for Dunn on our end of the county here certainly is a benefit to Harnett County. And I think that would be a great partnership that would be beneficial to all as we continue to grow in our area, and we are beginning to see some growth on this end of the county at this time. We come to you today, and we are making an offer to pay you for those 2 tracts of land, and some of that land is, 3 tracts, the 2 tracts that are beside the plant, and the 3rd tract would be down the river, up the river, I guess it is, where the intake plant is. That would be the 3 tracts that we're interested in buying. And our offer on this is to pay the county $350,000 to purchase this property. We didn't come to the county with a lowball offer. We know there's liability that goes along with this. We know that some of the land is not usable, but we're willing to take all of it and relieve the county from its liability. And our desire would be build a plant next to the current plant that we have, and that way we continue use of our old plant until we switch over to the new plant. It would be very, very difficult for the city of Dunn to build a plant on this site because we don't have room next to where we are now. And I guess you would say that we're experiencing growing pains. And our desire is to work with the county and take some liability off of you all and give us some room to grow. In a meeting that we were in with Mr. Ward, it was indicated, and the question was asked, I think, by the chairman of your board of what his plans were and how soon the county could possibly use that land, and he said it would be probably 15 years, which would indicate to me that, the county's held it for 14 years already and possibly another 15 to 20 years before anything could be done on the county's end. And we would like to make this presentation, and we are prepared to close. City of Dunn is in great financial shape. We have even gone through the process about potentially borrowing the money to build our plant, and we've been told that that's not a problem. We have no problem with our local government commission, nor do we have any problem with borrowing money at good rates to do this. So we're well prepared. After being in business for 100 years, we are very prepared to buy this with knowledge as well as with finances to take care of this. And as I said, we're willing to do this and close immediately on this property. We have had some discussion with our full board, and our full board knows that this is a means of growth and necessity for us. We cannot continue. We can't get another 60 years out of this plant. And without the county working with us and selling the property that you currently own, we're forced to go out and try to find somewhere else to go. And I don't think that it's really a good idea for a city and a county that we both belong to. We belong to Harnett County, and we're all a part of this together. I don't feel it's a good idea for the county to actually build a plant next door to our plant where we've been for 100 years. We want to work with the county, but it would sort of be forcing us out and keeping us from growing if we're not able to acquire this land, or certainly growing at that site. If we cannot grow at this site and due to not being able to purchase this land, then we're forced to move elsewhere, and the cost of getting water from the river to a new plant, depending on location, could be very, very expensive for us. Right now we've got lines in place that pump directly to where we need to be, and we're in good shape now. So I'd like to ask, if the board has any questions, we're more than willing to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
This is Commissioner Springle. So what you're looking at doing is expanding your plant using these 2 tracts of land that are adjacent to your water plant now?
That is correct.
So what would be the cost of expanding your plant that you have, that you're going to do?
That's still to be determined, but we know that we're looking at millions of dollars, Commissioner, to do this. We've got engineers, and at this point, engineers have been heavily involved with us for several months on working on this project, but we cannot do a design until we determine location. So that's kind of the situation we're in. We know that within 10 years that the existing plant is no longer going to be functional. So we're preparing to try to be up and running with a new plant within 6 to 7 years so that we're not faced with a dilemma down the road.
I guess my question is, if you've already gotten approval from the LGC to be able to borrow this money, you don't know how much money it's going to be, how would you get approval without knowing what the potential, at least an estimate of what that project would be?
You just consulted with them.
Yeah, it's just been on a consulting type basis, Commissioner.
Okay, all right.
So we get the final design.
Yeah, because we until we get final design, we're at the point now that we can start on design once we determine we can build on that property, or if not, then we're going to have to look at other options.
All right, thank you.
But we have had conversation with them, but just in conversation only. With certainly no formal application has been applied at this time.
Okay.
Any other questions? Coley, I guess he made the presentations.
Yeah, that's
He
fine.
made the presentation, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we appreciate your comments, and we will take it under, this is a work session, obviously. This is not a voting meeting, so we will take it under advisement, and we appreciate your presentation.
Okay, thank you all for hearing us, and I am available should any of the commissioners one-on-one like to speak with me or like to ride out and have a look at the project. I think we could then, show you. Sometimes it's easier looking at it, but I certainly could show you the dilemma that we are currently in. Who knew 100 years ago that, that what our needs would be this far down the road, but we are trying to plan for where our next generations will be for the next 100 years, so we can continue service. But thank you all for your time, and just let us know where it goes from here.
All right, thank you a lot. We appreciate your input.
Yes, sir.
We will now recognize Steve Ward. You've heard their presentation, and now the commissioners would like to.
Before you do it, let me ask you a question. For one, what it looks like on the map, because I'm just looking at what the map is, they're looking at two pieces of property that are around the plant, right?
Correct.
Now, what's this piece of property down the river? What is that?
That's the pump.
That's the intake that feeds that reservoir. That's what we fill it from. There's an intake there where we draw water out of the river. We pump it to that reservoir site. So that's that small tract you're referring to.
And the other question I have is, if they're offering $350,000 for the 3 tracts of land and the tax value is $297,000, isn't the tax value kind of low?
I'll leave that to the tax appraiser, but I would say this, that property is the most valuable property that we own because of the potential there. And I'd like to talk about that if I could, and then give y'all the opportunity to ask any questions you may have, because a lot of those questions I might be able to clear up, the questions that you have right now. And Gina, could you help me just a minute and pass these out? I think there might be 9 of them here, so. The mayor was right in that we acquired this property back around the same time that we acquired Irwin's water and wastewater system in 2006. And this was originally part of the old Burlington Mills or the Swift property.
That's the question I was going to ask.
And that site that you're looking at here, the one with the reservoir, you see up in the top right-hand corner, it looks like there's a structure there. That's the old Irwin Mills water plant.
Mm-hmm.
They had an old pressure filter system up there. It was as old, about as old as I can determine, as the Dunn water plant. He goes back 100 years. Well, the intake we're talking about that we currently own is very old as well. And that facility we have since torn down. So this isn't an updated picture. If you look at an updated picture now on our GIS, there is no structure up on the top right-hand corner. And then also down what he referred to as the horseshoe lot, down below it, right here. No, you were just go up right there. All that metal structure right there and concrete has been torn down as well. That was the old Irwin wastewater plant. We don't use that anymore. We have a lift station right there back on the south end. Go this way, Gina, and I'll go up just a little bit.
Other way.
There you go, right in there. There's a pump station where all the wastewater from Irwin comes down to that pump station, and we pump it to Lillington. So we no longer use that track there where the old Irwin wastewater plant is. And they were basically correct in that we filled that reservoir from that intake property that you were referring to, Gordon. And we do that just to turn it over. We have not used that reservoir in the past. I don't know where this liability issue is coming from. We went out there after we met with the city of Dunn, who brought up some kind of leak. That's a low area. You know, it was dry before a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't see any standing water out there. So I don't know. I don't know what that issue is about a big liability. We've owned it for 14 years, and we haven't done a whole lot to the property other than keeping it mowed and tearing down old unsightly structures that were no longer being used, much to the appreciation of the citizens of Irwin who live in that area. They were very thankful when we cleaned some of that up around there, and so we thought that was something interesting about the liability claim. But regardless, that's a valuable tract of land, and the piece of paper that I've given to you now shows we're in a constant state of planning here. We have to be, because we have to prepare for the future. What you see before you is a study done, part of our water master plan, from Hazen and Sawyer. They're engineering consultants of ours. This was done back in 2017. That actually shows that site being used as a water plant, and it also shows the remainder of a project where we go out and send water to different areas on the north side of the river. One thing to keep in mind with our current plant is this Hazen and Sawyer study has estimated that our demand, our max day demand in 2040, so 20 years from now, would be 52 million gallons per day. Our plant here on the south side of the river is currently rated at 42 MGD. So we're going to need 10 million more gallons to serve the citizens of this county and our customers in 20 years. That's the projection. So he mentioned that we had not planned for this, and it's not on our CIP. Well, our CIP goes out 10 years, and you can see from that document that we have planned for it. We've been looking at this site. This is the most logical site for us to use the facilities and the property that we own to build a water plant on the north side of the river to serve what's really the fastest growing area in the county. And it's not the eastern side of the county, it's to get water to areas that are growing like we know now, the 4,500 lots out in northwest, around 401, around Anger, all the area that's exploding right now. We're going to have to be able to serve those customers. And we can serve them from our existing plant, but we can build this new facility and serve areas where we take some of that demand off our current plant. So Coase, Irwin, all those areas in and around, all the way up toward Benson, Bailey's Crossroads, Barclayville, all those areas you see on that map, Bowie's Creek, all those areas, we can use this plant to serve them, because it is really cost prohibitive where our current plant is. Yes, we've got 42 MGD plant there, but to expand that plant, we are basically landlocked. We don't have any more space on that site, and anytime we expand it, we've got to put lines underneath the river to get it to the north side of the county and areas above that. So that's our dilemma. It's real expensive. This is a much more, and it's still expensive. If you look on your document there, you can see that the water plant is estimated that we want to build would be an 8 MGD water plant, and the cost is estimated at $40 million. That's a conservative estimate. It may be $50 million, $55 million to build that plant. So the reservoir area is where we would build that. That's the best piece of property there. You can see from the map that that's the highest piece of property right there. That's the natural place to put that water plant and to use and expand that reservoir. And that's a lot of what Dunn wants the tract for. Dunn told us when they met with us that they basically wanted to expand that reservoir all the way up to West East Street. So where they want to grow another plant is basically not on that lot, but to the area just south of them. Down there, it's all part of that same track and almost makes like a backward L shape. But below them, below those tanks, is where they want to put a new plant. Now, I've looked at these numbers. I don't know how it makes any sense not to expand their existing plant rather than building a whole new plant. I understand some of that, but I don't think that they're that far along in their process as they talked to you about, Commissioner Springle, about exactly what would be involved. But I can say this, the county is going to need a water plant north of the river. That's the most logical place to put it. And these tracts that we own and the utilization of that intake tract. When we met a couple of weeks ago, they didn't mention wanting that tract. I didn't hear that in our meeting unless I just missed that somehow, but I don't think so in their presentation. So that's something new that's been added. But it's certainly our recommendation that we hold on to that property. If we do decide to sell them some property, I think that area where the old plant was, right there, the old Irwin wastewater plant, that could be sold to them and would not affect us in a tremendous way if they wanted to expand their plant. That would still give them ability to expand their plant, in my opinion.
So, now explain to me what you're talking about.
Okay, you see where she's got the cursor?
Yeah.
That tract right there. You know, we could sell Dunn that tract if they're willing to take that, and we could still make what we want to. In the future, we would have enough room to build another water plant.
So we would do it on the other side of it?
Yes, we would do it right there where she's got the cursor now.
Okay.
Up on that high track right there, and then below the existing reservoir. Go back this way, Jim. Right in here. That track.
Okay.
That's actually higher than it looks there. It looks kind of wet, but basically that's not too bad a property, and the property up there above the reservoir as well. Whether we would use that reservoir, we may. We even made some suggestions to Dunn, and I'm not trying to tell them where to locate their plant, but right across from their intake, there's some farmland and property right there that could be used as well. And I understand them not wanting to leave close to where they are right now, where their existing plant is. But it's certainly our recommendation that the board not sell this property. It is way too valuable to the county long term, and it will be used. I guarantee you that. I don't see any way where it could not be to meet our long-term goals, which again, we have studied it. It may not be in our 10-year CIP, but I adjust that CIP every year. So that's not a document that we keep for 10 years and look at again in 10 years. It's constantly being changed. Like, I've got a lot more to worry about water supply, like I just mentioned, to those 4,500 lots coming into the Duncan and Anger area right now than I did 2 years ago. So I've had to amend that CIP. And so we're constantly looking at that, we're constantly planning, and that is a long-term objective that the county has, and I don't think we need to let go of that opportunity.
So you're saying that if we sold anything, it would be that property on the left side Right there.
I mean, my preference would be not to sell any of that property, but if we want to sell anything to Dunn, I think that property could be a compromise.
If they compromised with that and sold that, would they still need the intake property?
I would certainly not sell that. That is the most valuable piece. I mean, that's extremely important. We couldn't fill the reservoir without that. We'd be relying upon the city to fill that reservoir that we own, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So would they have to locate another intake property?
No, they've got an existing intake. If you'll go, go to that third track that you showed. It's one of
their maps now.
No,
it's on down.
It's on.
Keep on going down.
That's the last thing I have.
You've got others on there because it's in this presentation. You've got that track on there.
This is the last thing on the computer.
Or go down this way.
This is the last thing on the computer that I have loaded.
He's not
So let me
going
go
to
up.
GIS loaded.
Oh, she doesn't need it because it's one of the ones that she shows right here.
Y'all got that? That's what the city of Dunn put out in their presentation.
Oh, okay, so you don't have that.
I can get it
Yeah,
right
I can't
Yeah,
read
it's
it.
right there.
Okay.
Hold on,
We got it.
Now, Steve, on that piece that could be considered for sale,
Yes.
don't we have a intake line that runs through that?
We,
Part of it?
the best that we can tell, that mainly stays up near the street and then comes over back down. But that might be, even regardless of where that's exactly located, we could get an easement for that. Okay, that's our intake. Push that picture up a little. Can you push it this way? Well, it's out of the track. But right there about where her cursor is Dunn's intake.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually further down. You can't see it unless you're on regular GIS. But Dunn has their own intake.
Could they use that with that tract if they bought it from us?
Now,
The horseshoe
yes,
track,
yes, absolutely. That feeds, when their line that leaves that pump station goes to their water plant, and then it leaves their water, the main line leaves their water plant, goes to downtown Irwin, past our tank in downtown Irwin, turns, as the best of my recollection, goes back up to right there at the bridge at Red Hill Church Road, which that's on the north side, but I think that's maybe not St. Matthews. I can't remember the name of that street. But it's right there, and then it comes down and goes down past Lowe's and crosses the Black River and goes into town.
Actually crosses the corner.
So it makes no sense to sell them that intake at all if we don't sell them the reservoir property. That makes no sense. So again, my suggestion is if we want to sell Dunn anything as a means to give them room to maybe expand their plant, it would be to sell the old Irwin wastewater treatment plant.
Let me, the comment he made was their revenue is $1.5 million. Right, that's what he said?
The budget.
That's what he said?
Said the budget for
The budget for is $1.5 million. How can that cost them $3 million not to have $1.5 million?
I don't know. I know it'd be very expensive to build that water plant. It would be expensive for us to build a water plant there. It'd be expensive for anybody. So I don't know enough about Dunn's financial situation to even address those
The other thing I kind of
questions.
question too, they said they're a four-county regional. They used to be, but I think they've lost several other counties.
Dunn still sells water to Eastover. They just completed that project a couple of years ago. And they sell water to Sampson County. I don't think as much as they used to, but they still do. And they sell water to the town of Falcon, I think, and Godwin, and Benson. That's who they sell water to.
Okay, well, that would give them four counties. All
Right.
Okay.
So from what I saw on their 2019 water supply plan, they've got a current plant rated at 8 million gallons per day, and they sold 2.4 million gallons per day in 2019. So they've got plenty of capacity in their existing plant. I think the issue is, like the mayor mentioned, that their plant's really old and they want to upgrade their technology because they haven't upgraded that in several years, and we certainly understand that.
And Chairman, Steve Newshafer, they're still on the line, and he would like to say a couple of comments.
Okay. Steve, if you're still online, we'll gladly hear what you have to say.
Yeah, the mayor's still here, and we've just been listening to the comments and just wanted to, I think, just make sure we all understood, you know, the regional aspect of the city of Dunn, and also, you know, that budget information that the mayor brought up about. So the, you know, on the budgeting, you know, our operating budget is $1.5 million for the water plant. And, you know, that's to produce all the water that we sell to our customers from Eastover to Godwin, Falcon, Sampson County, and Benson, and the other customers we have here in Harnett County as well. And that $1.5 million, you know, if we were to, you know, sell the plant and to, you know, the county, as Mr. Ward had offered, and then, you know, your current rate, I think you've asked to go up to $2.60 per 1,000 gallons for your bulk rate users. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if we did that and replaced that $1.5 million, we would be expending $3.8 million to purchase water enough to serve the customers that we have already. So that would cost us an extra $2 million, basically close to $2 million extra every year to buy the bulk water from Harnett County to serve the customers that we already have. So that would, you know, that's debt service that we would be paying on a plant. So for us, the financial aspect of serving the customers we already have and serve every day just kind of makes sense for us. And I don't know if the mayor has anything else to add to it.
No, I think that's well taken, Steve. The only thing I want to add also is that we have not changed anything or added any land based upon the meeting we had with Steve. That's still the same property, still the same 3 tracts. And another point is our intake plant is located in a flood zone, and we're also in the future, we got to look at moving the electrical components of that out of the floodplain, and I would think that the county is in that same situation, sitting, because you're basically on the same area of the river we are, except just a few hundred yards upriver. So I would think the county at some point in time is going to have some sort of investment to continue to pump water to the reservoir. But I guess the reason in just keeping that reservoir filled, because there's no usage of the water. We don't use water out of the county's reservoir. It just sits there, I guess, to keep the pond full so it don't present other problems, would be my guess. I don't know on that, Steve. But no, we haven't added anything to the land as far as purchase. So I think the biggest thing we wanted to have the opportunity to clear up was the question about our operating budget and what it would cost from the county if we were to purchase from the county.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, have you?
We're going to mute back out. We're going to mute back out. We're still online. If you need us, just let us know. We'll chime back in.
All right. Thank you a lot, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I can't speak to their math there on their water rate. I have to look at those numbers, but the largest customers we have don't use 3.6 million gallons. It doesn't cost them $3.6 million a year. So I have to look at those numbers, but anyway.
Steve?
Yes.
Do you know where the trail extension runs on those properties?
It runs on that little track there
horseshoe
that
track.
where, the old Irwin, wastewater plant.
Yeah, it comes right down, right past Dunn's water plant, it comes right down, just pretty much see it as soon as you get there.
Yeah. So, any more questions about any of that?
Barbara, did he answer your question you were gonna ask earlier?
Yeah, he asked my question.
Seeing no movement, thank you, Steve, we appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, if I've not got lost, is, looks like we're back to the June 1st, 2020 regular meeting agenda and review.
Yeah, I think we pretty much finished that
Okay.
at this point, unless there's anything you need to add or change to it.
Review application to serve on boards, or
We didn't have any this month.
I think you gave us, or did I see an invitation to upcoming meetings? I don't know if I saw that or not.
We did not do it. Nothing's really
should
changed
have,
since the
but
last.
you
But I had a couple other things I didn't
Okay.
put on the agenda. One of them is, we've been contacted by the Boys and Girls Club, by the planning department, by the Boone Trail Community Center about reopening. So we were wondering, we've told them we were gonna revisit it in June, mid-June. So my initial inclination for some of these, especially the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board who need to meet, is maybe we open some of these places around the middle of June, just for these special meetings, not just opening back up, but just to have meetings. And maybe they meet here, since we've been meeting here, since the town of Lillington is not open yet, their boardroom. And then the Boys and Girls Club in Boone Trail, as long as we made sure that all the measures were in place for safety of everybody. I wanted to get your opinion on that. Again, not opening the whole county back up, but just opening up not PAL, because they're considered a gym, but the Boys and Girls Club, and then the Boone Trail Community Center for different activities, because they have a summer program for children, a summer camp program. That's mostly why these want to reopen. And I think parents are kind of ready to get some children back into some programs.
I think I heard you say that there would be protocols put in place if we open them back. There would be guidelines. It's just not open back up.
Right, we would follow the same guidelines that they've got on the DHHS website for businesses to have to open. We would have to follow those same protocols. And the ones they've got out for camps. I think there's some different guidelines for
So you
summer
want to
camps.
bring that up for our Monday morning meeting?
Exactly, just wanted to
Okay.
get your opinion on it, and then.
Yes, put it on there.
Okay. So then the last thing we need to kind of wrap up would be our general budget discussion. This was the last scheduled work session we had for the budget. And I didn't know if there's any other questions, any other comments, if you felt comfortable with the things that have been presented, if you need more information. This will be your time. We're working on the budget ordinance that has to be adopted on the day that we approve it, which we've got scheduled for the 15th.
I get the question, of course, we heard our Board of Education proposal this morning, and I guess we will gladly look at that when to say what we're going to do or not going to do.
Go ahead.
Yes, I made a recommendation in the budget packet. So
Okay.
if you want to differ from what has been presented, that's what we need information. So if you don't agree with the 60,000 for the nonprofit committee, this will be the time I need to know, do you want more? Also for schools, if you want something different, this is the time we need to know any changes to the proposed budget.
Now, you mean you need to know on the nonprofit today or at our meeting for?
Well, it would be helpful if we could get it as soon as possible. We can wait until Monday if you need more
No,
time.
I'm just asking if we need to move.
I mean, you
work on
can't
it
vote today anyway, so
I understand.
if you want to put that on the agenda to vote on, or if you want it to just be considered as a change to the budget. And Kimberly, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but typically any changes that you have between now and then, we just track them on a document and make that available to the public.
So Lucia Turlington, her recommendation was to change it from the 60,000, actually from 58,500 to $63,500 was her recommendation from the nonprofit committee. Is that the number that y'all understood?
Yeah.
That's what I had down.
Okay, which is down from 90,000 and.
Right.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
And she's preparing a revised list to support that 63.5, before you, when you consider it for approval.
Can that be something you?
We can request, we'll request a revised detailed budget from her before you actually vote, so we could put it on Monday.
Yeah, put it as a line item, not as a consent. I'm assuming that's what we would want to do.
And on the school budget, Paula, didn't we basically did what we did last year. We didn't increase the $4 million, right?
We did not.
I didn't think we did.
We used the funding formulas, which came up to less than what they got this year, but we held my proposal was to hold the funding the same as the current fiscal year.
Right.
Okay, so after listening to Aaron on that same note, after listening to Aaron this morning, what, without my paperwork in front of me, what is the budget that we're giving them, excluding Irwin Elementary School?
Well, that wouldn't be in their operating budget anyway, Joe. It'd be two separate things. One would be a operating budget, and the other would be a capital budget.
Correct. But I mean, when he gave his figure of $188 million, he had Irwin School in there.
Oh,
And probably Southwest Harnett too.
Was that for capital? For capital?
yeah,
funding?
yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's what I thought we were doing.
Yeah.
And basically, just to give you a little bit of information about that, from their facility request, we already are proceeding with the Ben Haven project using leftover money from the bonds. So that, for the early college, so that part we're already doing. And then the Johnsonville, y'all have already approved that capital project ordinance. So some of that stuff that they did request is moving forward. So you can consider that part of the current funding for them.
When you reduce the 11 million by the amount we've already.
5.1, yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Why did they put it in there like that when we're already?
Yeah, that's.
Well, they presented that before. I think they presented that back in April,
okay.
before we had done the other one. So currently, what we have proposed in the budget for this year for current expense, 25.
26.8.
I'll let Kimberly tell you.
I'm trying to pull it up now. If I'm not mistaken, it's the 26.8. Give me 2 seconds.
Do we have to make that decision today?
Which one?
I mean, on the budget, the school budget.
No, it's just that we really need your direction by Monday so that we can get the budget ordinance prepared. That'll be due June 15th. But we were hoping to get kind of some final recommendations today, if possible, for the budget.
Gina, can you scroll us back to his presentation? The school board I'm talking about. The money, it shows.
But there's a lot of increases there.
I'm talking, we're talking about operating budget. I'm not worried, the capital's a whole separate, the operating budget's what we gotta deal with.
Right. Whoa.
You're almost there.
Right.
A little bit close, right there.
Okay. Tell us.
Mr. Chairman, we have put it back in our budget to hold them harmless. This is Kimberly, the finance officer, by the way, sorry. We have put it in our budget to remain the current expense allocation of $24,680,603, which matched what and that's the number he has up there.
Yes, it is.
That local appropriation. And as Paula stated, the funding formula that we do the per pupil and then the number of children based on that formula that you approved actually brought in a current expense allocation lower than that because of the reduced number of children. But we
held them harmless.
Held them harmless, that's correct.
So our budgeted number
For current expense is that, and then we're recommending capital in the same amount as last year, $1,021,528. So $1,021,528.
But that would not, that's a separate line in the 24.
Right, and the million you're giving them, if you'll scroll down, it would really be for their Category 1 facility needs.
Right.
Yes, okay.
And they can choose it, they can use it as they wish.
As they choose, they just like always, they use it as they deem necessary. We don't earmark it, it's just, and that was $1,021,520, I believe.
528.
528, I'm sorry.
And the number of students that they lost this year was 127, just for your information.
So I think and I might be using the wrong verbiage, but I think by statute, we can't give them less than what we,
Per pupil.
per pupil than we did. I mean, that's, okay, right.
And as stated, we know that education is one of your priorities, and we would love to fund some of these other things that they've mentioned in their request. At this time, we just don't have it, but we do need to consider some of these other things in the future as money becomes available.
Well, with all the COVID-19 federal, state monies that's out there that we do not know that we're going to get, if any of that monies becomes available, then obviously they can be looked at after the fact. But right now, we have to look at it based on the facts and the figures and the monies that we currently know is in our distribution.
Right, and bringing them into the capital plan that we are doing in the fall will help us be working with them on this list. So it won't be just their list coming to us. We will have worked with them on it, and you'll be able to see things in more of a standard format that you do with every other request.
Okay. So do we need to give you, our direction is based on what Ms. Honeycutt just gave us. That's what our budgeted recommendation is, and that's what we'll go with as far as our budget presentation.
Right.
Right, unless you say something different today.
Okay. Commissioners?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. I mean, it sounds
We
good.
gotta do
I got thumbs up. It sounds good to me from all 5 commissioners, so we'll stay at that number. So I guess next, was that all you had?
That's all I have.
Do we have need for a closed session? That is really good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioner Springle made the motion to adjourn, seconded by, I'm sorry,
Tell us something we're supposed to discuss.
I can't hear you.
There's an item we're supposed to discuss amongst ourselves. It's not good.
I guess I should ask you, we have other business before we close. I guess you're going to bring.
Well, there are other business.
Not that I know of, unless you refresh my memory, Commissioner McCoy.
The manager. And we said we were going to discuss that.
Well, we don't have, we don't have a motion unless you're going to make a motion to go into closed session.
But if you don't see a need for it, I don't want to make the motion.
Okay.
I thought I got an email saying that we needed to discuss that.
No, I sent out and asked for the 4 commissioners, because Commissioner Miller did not respond to the county manager's performance review. So I sent it to the 4 people who did respond. I got a response back, and so that's failure on my part to come back to you, because it's not going to be on closed session today.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to hold it up. No.
Thank you for reminding my fuzzy memory. So we do have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Commissioner Miller. All in favor? I guess I got to do a roll call. So we got a motion and a second. I vote to adjourn. Commissioner Johnson. Vote to adjourn. Mr. McCoy.
Okay.
So we are adjourned.
Steve.